There was a letter that went viral from a wife who was dying of ovarian cancer. She made a dating profile for her husband, which has gone viral. Get the Kleenex when I read you that a little bit later on in the show. But right now, we're talking to Greg Willard, KTRS legal analyst, St. Louis University law professor. And Greg, you were going to be on the show because you are, as you've mentioned numerous times, you were the lawyer for President Ford, and now you are still you're a lawyer for the family, is that right, or for the trust?
For the President Ford's Legacy Trust.
And the plan was you were going to come on the show because last week you were there when they christened the aircraft carrier Ford, but it was also the site of some serious news as well because President Trump was there as well. You were there. That's why we have you on the show. Thanks for spending time with us.
Good to be with you, my friend.
So let's first of all talk about the christening of the aircraft carrier. That's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, this is a state-of-the-art, multi-billion-dollar aircraft carrier.
It is referred to as CVN-78. It is the newest aircraft carrier. We expect delivery to formally occur in the springtime, and we hope she will be commissioned into the fleet this summer. She will be the most powerful ship in the history of mankind. Several things I think of note to you and our listeners, McGraw. First, the technological advancements are breathtaking. Two that are most visible, you and I remember the movie Top Gun, when they shoot the F-18s off the deck and all the steam. Well, that steam is from the catapults that are piston-driven by steam to shoot the aircraft with all that power off of the decks. Well, on the Ford, the steam is gone. Those catapults are propelled by magnets. Similarly, inside the aircraft carrier, they have weapons elevators that have to lift as much as 200,000 pounds of weapons. On the old carriers and the ones currently in the fleet, those are powered by pulleys and electric motors. On the Ford class, they are powered, raised and lowered by magnets. The power plant, the nuclear reactors, will produce 3 times the amount of power on, say, CVN-77, the George H.W. Bush. So, in short, it is a magnificent ship that will become all the more magnificent when she's put into the fleet, we hope, this summer.
When you say magnets, what do you mean by magnets?
I mean magnets, my friend, just like you and I did grade school science experiments, obviously a little more powerful, shall we say, but the launch system that replaced the pistons is called EMALS, Electromagnetic Aircraft Launching System. And the track on which the catapult runs, there are a series of magnets all the way along that track.
Right.
And when the shooter down in the bubble on the deck pushes the button to launch, those magnets fire up and they actually propel that F-18 to about 190 knots in about 2.5 seconds.
So in other words, they like reverse the magnets, so the magnet is working against itself as it pushes itself off the boat. That's unbelievable. What about landing? Do they still have the tethered thing that they with the hook?
They do. They still have the cables. They call them the wires. On the Ford, there are only 3 instead of 4, and it is the new technology. They call it the advanced arresting gear, and the deceleration occurs not by springs, but this very sophisticated fluid down inside the ship. So when the tail hook catches that wire, it's got to slow it down immediately, and that is done by this new technology called the advanced arresting gear.
How long did it take them to build the USS Gerald Ford?
The first cut of steel was in 2004. In late 2006, Navy Secretary Winter summoned me to the Pentagon to plan the naming ceremony, and she was named in January of 2007. The keel was laid, I think it was in 2010, McGraw. The christening was in 2013, and she will be, as I say, commissioned, we hope, this summer.
So when you say it was christened in 2013, does that mean it was finished and ready to go, or are they still painting and still putting the finishing touch on it now?
Yeah, they were still at the christening in 2013. That's when the bottle of sparkling water is burst on the champagne by the ship sponsor, Susan Ford Bales. And that the ship was probably 90% completed then.
Right.
And it's 99 plus percent completed now. When I was walking through the carrier last week in advance of the president's visit, the number of shipbuilders who are actually on the ship now doing work is down to a very, very small number.
That's 13 years from start to finish.
13 years. CVN 79 is the John F. Kennedy. Thursday afternoon, I went down to the dry dock to see how that's coming along, and it's beginning to take the shape of an aircraft carrier. I think it will go into the fleet probably in 2022, 2023. The next carrier then is the USS Enterprise. What President Trump announced during his remarks Thursday is that he wants to restore the 12-carrier Navy. So that will require a speed up, if you will, in the number of carriers that are in the construction queue, because as you say, McGraw, it takes a long time to build one of these ships.
Can you explain to us how big the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier is, or is it just so big you can't even wrap your head around it?
A crude analogy, but in terms of getting your head around it, you remember the first time you saw the Grand Canyon?
Yes.
And you've seen pictures before, but until you see it, similar with being on the USS Gerald R. Ford. So I'm out on the flight deck Thursday morning waiting for President Trump to arrive on Marine One, and I think it's about 1,200 feet. Well, that's 4 football fields, McGraw.
Right.
There are 4.5 acres. There are thousands and thousands of miles of cables. So if you started at the top of the island and then went all the way down into the hull of the ship, you in effect would have traversed the stairs of a large downtown skyscraper.
And it has a nuclear reactor on it, so it can.
It has 2 nuclear reactors. It's nuclear powered. It'll have the ship will have a life of about 50 to 60 years. And as I say, the 2 nuclear reactors then power electrical generators that are as sophisticated as anything in the world, and they produce 3 times the amount of electricity of any ship ever known in the United States Navy.
Pretty extraordinary stuff. The USS Gerald Ford. Greg Willard, our guest, St. Louis University law professor. You were there. Did you meet President Trump?
I did. Spent Thursday afternoon. He was on deck or on the ship, and he toured the ship. We were in the import cabin, the stateroom, for a while, and then he gave a speech in the hangar bay to about 8,000 shipbuilders and crew members, and so spent several sessions in private, and then obviously was in public, and it was quite a day, irrespective of one's politics, for the commander-in-chief to be on board the most powerful ship in the world.
Right.
It was quite a day, and I think it was a real tribute also to the first commanding officer, Captain John Meyer, now Admiral John Meyer, and the current commanding officer, Captain Rick McCormick. Both of those men have shaped that crew into something that, as I said to one of the officials from the Pentagon, if these young men and women don't move, you ain't breathing.
Right. Did President Trump shake your hand in a weird way, or was it normal?
No, he was very gracious. Okay. And very gracious. And certainly the focus was on the crew and the shipbuilders.
So that was a big day because he was there. He was peppered by reporters as he was walking through the Ford, saying that he believed Sessions and so on and so forth. And then a few hours later, Attorney General Sessions recused himself from any ongoing investigations because of his connection with the Trump administration, as well as his misinformation when he spoke to the hearing or his confirmation hearings. You were there. Did anything bubble up? Any snide comments? Any funny comments? Anything while that was going on?
Well, it was an awkward moment, I would say. We were taking a tour. The president had left the import cabin, the state room, where he had meetings with shipbuilders and crew members, and he was on a tour of 5 different sections of the ship. I think the interaction with the press pool was inadvertent. And as he walked by, there was the press pool. They asked the question about Attorney General Sessions. He gave 2 brief, off-the-cuff comments, and as you mentioned, the cacophony Thursday afternoon immediately ensued, and it, quite frankly, hasn't stopped today, McGraw.
Yeah. All right. So where are you on all this? Talk to me about a independent prosecutor. The Intelligence Committee running this. You're a smart man. Where does this go from here? What happens next?
I think we can all agree. I think even the president would agree on a baseline fact. He and the American people want the facts. So we just kind of draw a line there.
Right.
What's the best way to get to those facts? Is it a House committee, a Senate committee, a joint committee of Congress? Obviously, the president yesterday feels it should be done by a congressional review. Should it be done by the Justice Department? Well, that's where Attorney General Sessions comes in. He recused himself.
Right.
So therefore, should it be headed up by the Deputy Attorney General, or should a special counsel, a special prosecutor as you referred to, but the technical term today is special counsel.
Right.
Should a special counsel be appointed? My personal opinion at this stage, McGraw, I think the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, either individually or combined, are perfectly capable. They have the staff, they have the security clearance, and they have the infrastructure to get to the bottom of what the heck has been going on.
Right.
But again, I think the point we need to keep in mind is that everybody, including the president, wants to get to the bottom of it. I think what was so, again, irrespective of your politics, what really bothered me last week was when Attorney General Sessions recused himself. You would have thought that we were revisiting the assassination of John F. Kennedy with breaking news.
Right.
McGraw, attorney generals recuse themselves all the time. Janet Reno for Clinton recused herself on the Branch Davidian, and your and my good friend Jack Danforth was brought in to do that investigation. Eric Holder recused himself on the subpoenas to the news media, the Roger Clemens. He recused himself. Loretta Lynch, she recused herself from the Hillary Clinton email investigation. So for goodness sakes, ironically, after being called upon by the Democrats to recuse himself, when he recused himself, it was portrayed with the talking heads as this constitutional crisis of epic proportions. And I think we have enough drama with all of this Russian email hacking and the like. We have plenty of drama without what I would call an artificial drama with Sessions' recusal.
Now we have the Donald Trump tweet saying that a former president wiretapped the president-elect's phones at Trump Tower.
That was a tweet over the weekend, McGraw. I think that may be, ironically enough, that may be the easiest one to get to the facts. Because for a wiretap such as that to occur, I think there are 2 things we need to keep in mind. Number one, the President of the United States cannot order a wiretap.
Right.
Number 2, those wiretaps would be authorized by the FISC, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court.
Right.
Well, there's a record, McGraw, of the authorizations that the FISA court, the FISC, would have given.
Right.
So I think on this issue of the president's tweets over the weekend that President Obama tapped his phones in Trump Tower, I think we'll get to the bottom of that relatively quickly. As to the other aspects of what the Russians were doing, with whom and why, that will take a while. But again, that's why I think the most efficient and the most effective would, in my judgment, would be the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Did you take a fork or a coffee cup or a plate from the USS Gerald R?
No, I have Captain Meyer and now Admiral Meyer and current Captain McCormick have given me plenty of mementos along the way.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. Greg Willard, St. Louis University law professor, also KTRS legal analyst, a very nice man right there for the front seat of history, and he was nice enough to share it with us this morning. Mr. Willard, thanks for coming in.
Always great to be with you, McGraw.
925, Big 550, KTRS. Johnny Londoff Chevrolet is where you want to get your news.